And with that, we welcome our dear friend, Reverend Elijah Christopher.
Good morning. How's it going out there? We have puppies and children here today. It's wonderful. Good morning. If you don't know me, I'm Reverend Elisha Christopher. I'm the spiritual director of the Center for Spiritual Living here in Santa Cruz. I do use they, them pronouns. My ancestors who immigrated to this country, we know came through Ireland, Scotland, Austria, and Holland. I do have ancestors indigenous to the Americas as well. So, 2026, our theme across Centers for Spiritual Living is Open at the Top. And we've talked about that as this idea that Ernest Holmes, the founder of this philosophy of science of mind that we teach, said to leave it open at the top, which means that the philosophy, the ideas, the spirituality, the practices are meant to evolve, that it's meant to grow, that as we gain new insight, as new things happen, as we evolve as a species, as we awaken to new ideas, that what we teach, what we practice should also evolve with that. And this month, February, our theme is Embracing the Edge, which is kind of the same theme all over again. Right? It's about stepping out, going beyond what is known. And I guess, how many of us just like absolutely love change? Oh, good, me and like 4 people in the room. And how many of us are comfortable in the unknown? Ooh, a few more people. Interesting. You know, I think this idea about embracing the edge is really about how we live, how we be when we're at the edge of what we know. Right? And all spiritual growth really is about moving beyond the edges of what is known. And, you know, thinking this week just around everything that continues to happen in this nation, we are all standing on the threshold of the unknown every day, right? Every day, things are happening out of our government. Things are happening in this nation. Things are happening in this world that are almost inconceivable, right? That it is truly that we are being pushed to the very edges of our comfort zones of what is known. But what that tells me is that we are moving through an evolutionary moment. Right? When we reach the edges of what we know, when we reach the edges of our belief, when we reach the edges of our experience or our comfort zone, we are now at the growth edge. Right? The growth edge. And that place is either exciting, it's anticipatory, but it's also potentially terrifying. Right? When we're at the edge of what we know, that means that what is beyond that is the unknown. And, you know, I love the idea of living in the mystery, of being in that joyous anticipation, in that curiosity, in that openness of what's on the other side of what I don't know, which is perhaps very different than approaching the unknown with a sense of skepticism or fear or shutting down, right? And in this philosophy, one of the things that we talk about is that our mental constructs, we call them mental equivalents, our mental constructs create what we experience, right? There's a feedback loop happening, and this is actually true of how the human brain works. You do not perceive reality as it is. You perceive reality as you expect it to be. And that's true of the human brain. We can't see things that we cannot comprehend, even though they may be there, right? And so whatever we've experienced up until now gives us the mental patterns of what we believe is possible. And so part of the spiritual work of being in meditation, of being in prayer, of being in spiritual study is about constantly pushing the edges of what we believe is possible and expanding that bubble to be a little bit more. Every time we sit in the silence a little bit longer, that capacity to be open to the more expands. How many of us are comfortable in silence? Without your phone? Right? What happens when we don't use our phones, right? I was watching, how many of us saw the monks that have been doing this march reach Washington, D.C. this week? Yes, 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 yes. And I watched the talk that happened at Washington, D.C., and one of the things that the head monk who was speaking was talking about was being fully present. And he said, in order to be fully present, don't touch your phone. Be right here in this moment, right? And we live in a society and in a moment in time where there is so much available to distract us, whether it be the good or the bad. There's plenty to distract us. But what happens when we're distracted is that when we're distracted, we're not pushing the edges. When we're allowing ourselves to be distracted, when we're allowing ourselves to be in the scroll and be in the news and be in the dopamine hit of what's next on my feed, we're not present. We're distracting ourselves. We're hiding from the true feelings, from the things that we really need to be addressing. Right? And so in order to get out of our comfort zone, in order to push the edges, in order to be open at the top, we've got to be willing to be uncomfortable. Which means stepping out, which means doing things in new ways. And so think for yourself for a moment, where in your life are you standing at the edge of what is comfortable or what is known? Think about that for a minute. Where in your life right now are you standing at the edge of your comfort zone or standing at the edge of what you know or believe is possible? And then, what would it look like to take one small step in any direction that pushes you beyond that zone? To expand that bubble of possibility just a little bit. And just take a breath on that. Because I guarantee you, my friends, your spiritual growth is not inside of your comfort zone. Your personal growth is not inside of your comfort zone. Our societal growth is not inside of our comfort zone right now. Right? And so there's something that's happening that's calling all of us, I think collectively, all of humanity, up into a verge of an evolutionary moment. And the thing that I know from history, from biology, is that crisis always precedes evolutionary jumps. That when species come up against a moment of crisis, reinvention happens. And so the thing is, if we are clinging to what we know, if we're clinging to the way that America was, if we want to make it great again or something like that, right, then this is not about going backwards. None of this is about going backwards. We cannot cling to the systems or to the ways or the beliefs of our past if we want to move into the future. Right? And so for us to step forward, we've got to be imagining whole new ways of living and being. And I'm pretty sure in order to access that divine intelligence, in order to access that wisdom, in order to access that creativity, we also have to slow way down. Because there is so much that needs our attention. And many of us, all of us perhaps, especially in this particular moment that we're all living through, we are all living in a moment of crisis, which means that the hair on the back of our neck is kind of standing up, right? Which means that we're on alert. And what happens when we're on alert? What happens when we're in that heightened mode? What happens when we're afraid is the brain is being hijacked and that higher level of thinking is not available. I'm thinking about the monks again this week who were speaking and said, the thing that we all have to do right now is cultivate peace. All of the division and the hatred and the separation and the warring and the oppressing that is happening is coming from people who have no connection to a sense of peace. That I know. And if only we had that sense of connection, though those of us who have some access to a sense of a higher truth about who we are, a sense of a higher truth about what's happening in the world, let that be the thing that lifts us up. Let that be the thing that opens our hearts so that we can be the presence of peace in the world. right? I spoke to this example from this monk that I'm speaking about last week that said, they've been they've been walking around the country. And yes, people show up and support them and tell them how wonderful they are, and the peace gets magnified. But there's also the people who are throwing hatred. There's also the people who are standing in their way saying, I'm against what you are doing. And what did he say? What do I do when someone throws their hate at me? I respond by saying, may you be at peace. May you be happy. May you be well. Because our job is to perpetuate the good. Our job is to expand the idea of what's possible, not to shrink into the hatred, not to step backward into cowering into old ways of being, but stepping forward into the more of us, into the new of us, into the next. Right? And one of the things that the folks who are taking the prosperity class are learning right now, and one of the core teachings of this philosophy of science of mind that we teach here, is that your mind, your attention, your words, your actions, your choices are directing God. That it is the spirit of creation that creates worlds and universes that is being directed by your attention. That what you give your energy to, you give life to, because the creator of the universe is acting through you in everything you do. And our job is to wake up to the realization that each one of us is the conductor of this great symphony of life. And that we've actually been conducting and creating and directing it all along, by default. That wherever the world's attention is collecting is what the world is creating. So our job is to begin to tune our minds, tune our attention, tune our choices towards the world that we want to see, the good that we want to create. And realize that wherever we give our attention, the divine energy is flowing. So we have an opportunity before us to expand the edges of what is possible so that we can bring about this vision that we talk about here at Centers for Spiritual Living of a world that works for everyone. Truly, a world that works for everyone is not a world that works for some, not a world that works for just humans, for everyone, for all of life, right? And that comes from us reconnecting with a sense of the sacred and allowing ourselves to reinvent and reimagine the systems that are surrounding us, that are uplifting, that are holding up the world. Right? I heard an interview with Pete Buttigieg a while back who said all of the dismantling of all of the systems and the rights that are happening in this nation is terrible. It's terrible, terrible, terrible. He said, and no one in their right mind would have designed the systems that we have today the way that they are now. So let's take the opportunity where things are being dismantled, things are being torn apart, things are being ripped away, but it gives us the opportunity to reinvent, to recreate, and to bring something new into existence. So the unraveling, as Gitanjali said before, right, as Lord Shiva steps in to destroy all that no longer serves, there's now room to create that which now could work. The new way of being is brought in the space of that which is released. And I know that's true for all of our lives. Anytime we let go of something that no longer serves us, we open up a huge space in our life for the universe to bring in new ideas, new opportunities, to bring the good into our lives. But we can't be open to the good if we're not willing to let go of the old. Because if my table is full, it's full. But when I release all that no longer serves, when I let go of the things that need to be let go of, there's a great big opening. And that great big opening says to the universe, I'm ready for something new. So let that be part of the pushing of our edges as we look out into the universe, as we look out into our nation, as we see things falling away, as we see things being torn apart. Let us remember that a new space is being created, that new openings are opening up, that new ways of being now have room to be installed in this great big program that we're all working in together. Do you feel that? Yes. Take a breath and let it go. I want each one of us to really think about where and how we can show up in the world in a greater way to bring about more peace, to bring about more love, to bring about more compassion, to activate our sense of collective power, whatever it is, know that we are all standing on the edge together. And if we're willing to step across it and expand into the more together, there's no limit to what we can create and what we can call in and who we can become. But we have to believe that it's possible. We have to believe, like we saw in great big lights in the Super Bowl halftime show last week, that the only thing stronger, more powerful than hate is love. The only thing more powerful than hate is love. And so what would it look like for each one of us to walk out of this place this week with the edges of our love expanded? To learn how to walk in the world as representations of love in action. Showing where our love can overpower hatred, where our light can overpower the darkness, wherever we go. So take a deep breath and let it go. Another deep breath in and let it go. One more deep breath and let it go. And so let's just breathe together a little bit deeper. Take a moment and allow ourselves to feel these bodies being breathed. To remember that if we can expand that capacity of who we believe and know that we are, we can remember that the I am that I am is God. That the life force that is beating each one of our hearts and breathing these bodies is something greater than we can conceive of. That there's a power coursing through us that has the capacity to create worlds. That indeed the one life is moving, living, and breathing in, through, and as each one of us. And so let us awaken to that today. To remember that there is a power coursing through us that is greater than any circumstances outside of us. That as we expand the edges of what we believe is possible, we start to dream bigger dreams. As we start to expand the edges of who is welcome in our hearts, we expand the global heart and we expand love itself. So let us take this message today that it is our invitation, each one of us, to step out in new ways, to push the edges of what we believe is possible or where we are comfortable so that we can grow and become something greater than we can imagine. Because what I know is that we are living through a moment of transformation. And that something greater than we can imagine is seeking to express itself through the body of humanity, through the body of this nation, through the body of this community. Something more is waking up. Love is waking up. And we can be the place where that awakening has happened. For as we awaken, we expand. And as we expand, we grow. And as we grow, we learn to believe in higher ideas, and then we express them in the world. And so I'm grateful for this community, for the space that we have to come together, to be in this inspiration, to be reminded of this co-creation, to be activated by these ideas so that we can hold each other, so that we can lift each other up and then bring this light out into the world. For the world is crying out for peace. The world is crying out for love. The world is crying out for togetherness. And so let us be the place where the prayer is answered. And so let us breathe again, taking another deep breath and just allowing ourselves to remember that we are being breathed by something greater than ourselves. That the one life is coursing through us. but the one life is coursing through absolutely everyone. And our job is to know that, to see that, to believe that, and to awaken that truth in everything we do. And so we let it be, and so it is. And so it is. Thank you. Gitanjali?